It feels like we already know everything about ancient Greece. They told us in school. The Parthenon, 300 Spartans, blind Homer with the Iliad and Odysseus. But in reality, there were far more Spartans. The Parthenon once worked as a central bank, and there was never a single country called Ancient Greece with a capital in Athens. Before we go further, if you enjoy history told with scale, drama, and the hidden truth behind famous legends, subscribe to Empire Never Sleeps and join thousands of viewers exploring the rise and fall of civilizations. New episodes every week, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. And the Trojan War and Alexander the Great are separated by almost as much time as we are from the Norman Conquest. Let's try to figure out what was really going on in the Greek world a little faster than over a couple thousand years. 3,700 years ago in Egypt, the pyramids were already standing. Babylon was the first megacity on Earth, where you could find everything, even a prototype stock exchange. And on the island of Crete, a mysterious civilization was flourishing. They already had apartment blocks, 3-story palaces with sewers, running water, and even swimming pools, and almost no defensive walls at all. It seems the Cretans lived relatively peacefully, admiring flowers, blue monkeys, and elegant women. The women walked with open bodices, and the men wore loincloths or skirts. They also had a navy and writing, though much about them still remains unknown. Meanwhile, on the island of Thera, today's Santorini, now a wedding paradise, the most powerful eruption in European history takes place. Part of the island sinks beneath the sea. Perhaps this is how the myth of Atlantis was born. 100-meter tsunami, clouds of ash spreading for hundreds of miles around. Crete never fully recovered. Soon, invaders arrived. On the once peaceful island, bronze weapons appear, and tablets written in another language. They were deciphered only recently. It turned out to be the earliest known form of Greek. It was spoken by warlike tribes who at the start of the second millennium settled mainland Greece and built Thebes, Athens, Mycenae, Pylos. But these cities already hid behind massive 6-meter walls. Life here was not peaceful at all. After a few centuries, the Greeks themselves would hardly believe their grandfathers built them and would claim the walls were raised by Cyclopes. And on Crete, they insisted there had never been any older civilization at all. The 3-story palace was Greek, the fleet was Greek, and even the Minotaur was half bull and half Greek. No one seemed bothered that bull games were a purely Cretan pastime. The Greeks became masters at borrowing everything they encountered, and would keep doing so for another 1,000 years. After conquering Crete, they mastered the seas as well. They sailed and grew rich. In lavish tombs at Mycenae, archaeologists found heaps of gold. Almost all surviving tablets are accounting reports. Mycenae is the very city that fought Troy in Homer's Iliad. Even a century and a half ago, many believed it was pure legend, until the wealthy amateur archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann excavated both Mycenae and Troy. Today, a famous Trojan horse stands there. Archaeologists really did find in Troy layers of fire and destruction dating to around 1200 BC. But at roughly the same time, settlements everywhere declined, from Thebes to Knossos, and from Troy to Ashkelon. Across the Mediterranean, barbarian tribes advanced on every front. The next 300 years are called the Dark Ages. Writing disappears. We have almost nothing to read about what happened then. Fortunately, we have Homer. Everyone has heard of the blind poet, author of the Iliad and the Odyssey, the earliest great works of European literature. In truth, we do not know what he looked like, when he lived, or even whether he was one person at all. What matters is something else. The poems were written down after the Dark Ages, but the heroes live in that world. Odysseus is king only because he owns more goats and pigs. His palace is a wooden hall behind a fence, with heaps of manure by the entrance. His father sleeps on the ground in ashes beside slaves. All the heroes are illiterate. Bulls serve as money. It looks nothing like Mycenaean palaces. So what happened? Mycenaean civilization was destroyed by the Dorians, also Greeks, but far more rugged tribes. Descending from the mountains of the northern Balkans, they settled the Peloponnese, Crete, and islands as far as Rhodes. The earlier population either fled into the hills or sailed eastward. Of all the achievements of the previous civilization, the Dorians kept only what was absolutely necessary: the sailboat and the potter's wheel. Only centuries later did their pottery gain the simplest patterns. Only later still do primitive images of people and animals appear. Around the same time, on the edge of the 8th and 7th centuries BC, the Greeks borrowed from their Phoenician neighbors an entirely new alphabet, unlike the old linear scripts of Crete and Mycenae. You can still recognize modern Greek letters. The fog of the Dark Ages finally begins to clear. Only now does the ancient Greece familiar to us really begin, though in fact it was never one country. Not a state with common borders and a capital, but many very different and fully independent city-states, or polis. How did this happen? Because despite the cliché, Greece did not have everything. In reality, it had very little. Greece is sea and mountains, dividing it into separate fragments. Only a few patches are suitable for farming. Grain had to be imported early on, so why not grow it elsewhere? That is how the great Greek colonization began. If we trust the earliest historians, Miletus alone founded 90 colonies, among them cities on the Black Sea. Southern Italy was settled as well. That is how the alphabet arrived there, later becoming Latin and conquering the world. Greek civilization spread from today's southern Russia to today's Marseille. They brought grapevines there, from which later French winemaking would grow. Amphora fragments are now scattered from Gibraltar to Georgia. These were not artworks but containers for grain and jars for wine. Wine, by the way, was diluted with water. Only barbarians drank it straight. To make trade easier, coins appear. Like the alphabet, they were borrowed from neighbors. In Plato's words, within a few hundred years, the Greeks settled around the Mediterranean like frogs around a pond. Two polis barely joined this colonization at all: Athens and Sparta. Spartans were descendants of those same warlike Dorians who destroyed the Mycenaean world. They solved land shortages differently. They conquered neighboring fertile Messenia and declared all its inhabitants helots, something between serfs and slaves. There were far more helots than Spartans themselves. So Sparta turned from an ordinary polis into a military camp, whose main task was preventing rebellion. In Athens, things developed differently. Struggle over land forced aristocrats to bargain with the common people. From this, democracy would later emerge. But first, power often fell to tyrants. A Greek tyrant did not necessarily terrorize the people. Often it was the opposite. Usually he was an aristocrat feuding with other aristocrats, so he promised ordinary people a better life, and with their support, seized power by force. Now all the tyrant's energy went into keeping power, so instead of reforming anything, he simply exiled rival nobles. To distract the people, tyrants invented festivals and new cults. Enemies might be boiled in a bronze bowl, but you cannot boil everyone. Tyrants were overthrown, and weakened aristocrats tried to negotiate with the people. Thus, Greek democracy was born. If an ancient Greek saw modern democracy, he might say only one word: oligarchy. Their democracy was direct, no representatives. If a polis had 6,000 citizens, all could take part in the assembly. Those citizens were less than a quarter of all residents, minus slaves, minus women, minus resident foreigners, medics. By the middle of the 6th century, the most advanced Greek cities were not Athens or Sparta, but the Ionian polis. They were first to adopt the innovations of Eastern neighbors: money, mathematics, fleets, and complex trade logistics. Meanwhile, right beside them, a threat suddenly arose: the vast Persian Empire. In 499 BC, Miletus still hoped to preserve independence and rebelled. Athens sent aid, but nothing worked. The Persians burned Miletus and decided to move farther west. Their attempts to conquer Greece lasted 20 years. How it happened we know thanks to the first historian, Herodotus. He notes that many Greek cities fought for Persia as well as against it. So how did Athens and Sparta win? The first reason was military innovation. At Marathon, the Greeks used the phalanx, a disciplined infantry formation in several dense ranks. Herodotus says the Persians lost 6,400 men, while Athens lost only 192, plus one messenger, who ran to Athens to announce victory and immediately died. The second reason became a legend. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans under King Leonidas held off the Persians for 3 days. True, alongside them fought several thousand Greeks from other polis and helots as well. But still, the Spartan spirit. For centuries, they had lived in barracks, even in peacetime. And the third reason was the fleet. Near Athens, rich silver deposits were found. The money could have been spent on anything, but by democratic vote, it was used to build 200 triremes, fast and highly maneuverable warships with 3 banks of oars. Thanks to this navy, the Greeks defeated Persia in the decisive sea battle, followed by victory on land. The Greeks went on to the offensive. At the same time, Greek cities in Sicily defeated their old rivals Carthage. Thus, different regions together created the world in which classical Greek culture was born. To finally break Persia and free Greek cities in Asia, Athens formed a maritime alliance. Now, Athens at last became the center of the Greek world. Some 150 cities agreed to pay yearly tribute for the common army and fleet. The treasury was kept on Delos, the sacred island of Apollo. But soon, for greater financial security, of course, the patron deity was proposed to be changed to Athena. Guess in which polis her office suddenly opened. The most elite real estate of the 5th century BC, with the finest view in Greece, the Parthenon. It was built not only as a temple, but as a central bank, where soon the entire allied treasury was stored. Without this money, there would be no Greek classical age at all. Sculpture, drama, architecture, philosophy. At the head of the new financial center stood strategist and orator Pericles. He made a 30-year peace with Sparta, rebuilt the Acropolis destroyed by Persia, stretched long walls to the port, and redesigned the city on a rational grid without which there would be neither modern capitals nor great planned cities. Where money gathers, the best minds gather too. The sculptor Phidias immortalized Greece in stone. The philosopher Anaxagoras suggested the shocking idea that the sun was not the god Helios in a chariot, but a fiery body of enormous size. All this great culture was created in barely half a century, but other cities envied Athens terribly, especially Sparta and her allies. The Cold War between them had smoldered since victory over Persia, and in 431 BC turned hot. Sparta and its allies besieged seemingly impregnable Athens. The people hid behind the walls. Food supplies were secure, grain arrived by sea. But with it came either typhus or plague, and the city was struck by pestilence. Even Pericles died. In his place came demagogues. Whoever promised more, won. Leader of the Athenian army and fleet became Alcibiades, the brilliant and unscrupulous nephew of Pericles. His idea? A small, victorious war. Let's drop everything and sail to Sicily, as if conflict with Sparta were not enough. The fleet was ready, but on the night before departure, something inexplicable happened. Across the city, someone mutilated the statues of Hermes. The polis was outraged. Alcibiades was accused of conspiracy and summoned to trial. But he fled to Sparta and asked for political asylum. The chief strategist now advised the enemy. Allies left Athens one after another. The famous fleet was destroyed. Athens accepted a humiliating peace on condition that its walls be torn down. Hermes had broken all the power of Athens. Yet against this dark background, classical tragedy and comedy flourished. 3 great tragedians, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, and the comic playwright Aristophanes, created plays still staged today, though they wrote them fully expecting the first performance to be the only one. That was how theater worked then, yet thousands would see it, far more than many stages now. Ancient drama was always about current events. So it turned out that the worse things became for the city, the better for culture. No true winner emerged from the Peloponnesian War. All Greek polis declined. But unexpectedly, things went well for Macedon, distant relatives of the Greeks, whom many Greeks had long viewed as near barbarians. Yet even the great philosopher Aristotle traveled there for work. There, he became tutor to a remarkably talented young boy. The boy's father was Philip. Philip strengthened the Macedonian kingdom and in 338 BC defeated a coalition of Greek cities, uniting almost all Greece in a common league to settle accounts with Persia at last. But Philip was murdered, and his son continued the work, Alexander the Great. He invaded Asia with lightning speed, defeated the armies of King Darius, but did not return home. Instead, he marched to India. Thus a new world was born, the Hellenistic world. Greek and Eastern cultures blended into one whole. The model of the polis spread everywhere. New Alexandrias appeared across the map, though without much democracy. Officials in Asia spoke Greek. In Europe, meanwhile, old gods on Olympus were joined by new ones with obvious Eastern features. Alexander himself in Egypt was proclaimed a god. He was delighted, and now received only ambassadors who came not to mortal kings, but to a divine ruler. Court protocol required everyone, in Eastern fashion, to bow at his feet. We can only guess where it might have led. Greek decrees have even been found encouraging the spread of Buddhism. But Alexander died young, and the place of his death, Babylon, became the center of an empire that immediately began to crack at the seams. While Alexander's successors, the Diadochi, fought one another, in the West a new ambitious power was rising. In 146 BC, Rome conquered Greece, and in 30 BC, the last stronghold of Hellenism, Egypt, also fell. Yet Greek culture won here too. With Roman expansion, it spread across the world. Romans now read the Iliad and Odyssey in Greek, and later in Greek, they would read the New Testament as well. In 330 AD, on the site of the old Greek colony of Byzantium, Constantine built a new city, Constantinople. Thus began the history of the Byzantine Empire, which would prolong Greek civilization for another 1,000 years and leave us several more gifts. For example, another alphabet of our own.